Professor Phil Cummins from the School of Earth Sciences at the ANU says the impact of aftershocks can be very severe.
Aftershocks can be a big problem. This was a magnitude 7.5 earthquake, and the rule of thumb is that you could get aftershocks as big as magnitude 6.5, and those are certainly damaging. Those could cause damage, and they could also cause more damage than normal because some of the buildings might already be partially damaged.
Is there any way to determine how long they will continue?
Not really. Aftershock sequences vary in length and their energetics, and so it could go on for easily a couple of weeks, I would say.
Now, as we mentioned in the introduction there, a tsunami warning was issued, but it was lifted within an hour, and there has been criticism of Indonesia's authorities over that. Do you think, is that criticism justified?
Look, I don't know the details about that, and I wouldn't want to jump to either criticizing or exonerating the agency. That's really for the Indonesians to do. But I will say that this was a local tsunami. It would have, this earthquake was very close to where the tsunami occurred. It was probably a landslide, very difficult to warn for. And for any local tsunami, it will arrive within tens of minutes of the earthquake occurrence. So people really have to start moving when they feel the earthquake. If they feel very strong shaking and they're in a coastal area, they need to move uphill and not wait for a warning. So I do think it would be a shame if the focus was on what the agency did afterwards, when really it sounds, from what I hear, it sounds like the problem was more of public awareness, that people should have known and should have acted on moving uphill, because there just isn't time in the case of a local tsunami to wait for a warning.
Reports are still coming in regarding the impact of this on communities up the coast from Palu. Given the size of this earthquake and tsunami, what's your expectation of the news that we'll be hearing from those areas?
Yeah, from what I read in the paper, that's all I know, there are still no reports from Donggala in the earthquake epicentral area. And of course you would expect much more damage there. It was a very large earthquake. It could cause a lot of damage, and if we still haven't heard reports, if the current death toll doesn't include reports from that area, then I would certainly expect the death toll to rise.
Indonesia is, of course, prone to earthquakes because it lies on that ring of fire. Just explain for us what that means for Indonesia.
Well, the Ring of Fire is this sort of belt of subduction zones where plates slide beneath each other, and that leads to very large earthquakes and tsunamis. This isn't really on a subduction zone, but it is a major strike slip fault. It's a major transcurrent plate boundary where the plates are moving side by side, and that cuts right through the city of Palu. And I'll point out that this earthquake occurred north of the city of Palu, but the fault itself goes right through Palu, and so it's a very dangerous area. The fault is very active, and it cuts right through the Palu Valley where people are settled, and that part of the fault hasn't ruptured yet.
Of course, there will be a long recovery effort, a rescue effort, and a recovery effort in the coming days for those people in Indonesia. What can the people in Indonesia be expecting over the coming days?
Well, certainly there'll be aftershocks, and so that is a real concern. It'll be a concern for the people in the area and people doing response. So especially when they're having to go into partially collapsed buildings to try and rescue people, they have to be very wary of aftershock occurrence. Then there's always the chance that another, one large earthquake can trigger another large earthquake. We don't know that will happen. The likelihood is it won't, but there's always the chance that it could happen. And as I say, there is this major fault cutting through Palu that has yet to rupture. So I would be concerned that something could happen, and I hope that people are prepared to do things like cut off gas lines and try to avoid going into partially damaged buildings and try to be wary of furniture, precariously perched furniture, for example, things like that could fall on them if there is another major earthquake. There are a few things that can be done, and I hope people do take some precautions.